Hey everybody, David Air Becker here with Becker Art, and I first off want to thank all of you who so wonderfully mentioned and my dad and your condolences and well wishes. Thank you so much. It made the week so much nicer, and to be able to take my dad's passing that was on last Tuesday, and but you guys are so wonderful. Thank you so much for well wishes. And this art, being in drawing and painting, is really is like soulful for me to sit there and paint and it's one of those things that I love to do. I love to paint and I love to teach you guys. And so that's what we're doing here today. This morning we're going to be showing you how to do or I'm just going to show you how I like to paint. Usually on Sundays it's not so much a paint along, but for you to watch and see how I like to paint. And I like doing singers and I like doing these entertainers lately. And so this morning we're going to be doing this lady singing. And I already drew it down. And I want to show you something about my drawing when I'm drawing. What I'm doing is I am drawing a line, but I'm also taking my pencil and I'm blending. And I kind of look for the darks and I just really lightly blend. And I'm kind of looking for what's going to have to be soft edged and what's going to go from soft to hard edged and just where the shadows are going to be, especially on the face in here. I went and did the lips a little bit. I shaded it, but when I do it, I kind of put too much graphite on there. And so what I do to take it off, and I'm not sure if I ever showed you guys this trick, but this trick is to take kneaded rubber eraser. Yeah, this is a kneaded rubber eraser, and I have about 5 of them on here because I like to have it big, and then I pull it apart like this to clean it. And then what I do is like here I didn't do it. I already did it on the face, but I make it like a rolling pin. I just do it like this. And to get some of this graphite off, because it's pigment and it'll be dark pigment, and I don't want that to like make my grays into like a nice warm wash for the flesh tones. And so I just take it and roll it over like the areas that I put the graphite on to kind of give me an idea where I'm gonna be shading. It's almost like I'm painting it with my pencil. And so what I do is I just roll it on here and I just roll it across. I learned this from one of my mentors, Max Ramft. He was a illustrator at where I worked at J. Walter Thompson, and he showed me how to do this. And this is like because you're getting rid of a little bit of the graphite, but it's still showing lightly a very light touch of where the shadows are going to be, and so that's still there. But you just get rid of a little bit of the graphite. So you're not erasing the lines, you're just getting rid of the graphite that's sitting on top. And so I just roll it over it. And it'll get your hand dirty, definitely, because look at how dirty made my kneaded rubber eraser, because the graphite is sitting there and I don't want it to mix within my nice orange paints. Now, parts are going to be darker, so a lot of times, even if I left it on there, I do that when I'm outside plein air painting. Sometimes I'll put in where I want the shadows to be. And so it's usually dark pigment in that area when you're shading. So sometimes it even helps it. So you don't have to do this every time. But for a face, I thought, especially for a face, I didn't want it to be too much involved with the pigment going in there. And so here we go. And hey guys, thanks for stopping by this morning. And actually, thank you for telling your friends too about my free workshops or my free paint alongs on YouTube. And please subscribe. If you and trying to get as many people to subscribe as much as possible. It always helps me out. And so tell your friends. It's all about me teaching you, and it's all free. So what were you going to do? So normally with my paintings, I go light to dark, and I'm doing them watercolor, transparent watercolor, but I kind of a lot of times finish it with opaques too now. And I've been really enjoying that for my plein air painting. I like putting the opaques in there, but you decide on if you want to be a purist and do it all plein air. I mean, not plein air, but all in watercolor. I'm talking about the the transparency. So either going to be a transparent watercolorist or you can do gouache at the end. So that's up to you. So I go light to dark, and so basically her face is the lightest, right? And hey Rebecca, hey Darcy, Eve, Evie, and Lyle. Thanks you guys for stopping by. And so here, let's go with her face right away because it's the lightest part. And so I'm going to wet the face. I'm just going to wet, and I'm working on a board today. I'm working on a panel, watercolor panel. And I've been working on it a lot lately because I just like the fact that I can just, when I'm done, I'm done. And I put it right into, I'm done with it and I can put it right into a frame with no glass, no thing. I can just wax it or varnish it. And so now I'm going to take a little bit of flesh tone and I'm going to get the light parts done. I'm just going to kind of throw them in there. I've been having a problem with this crescent board, though, and I see already that it may be on here too. So what that means is I got to use my paint a little bit thicker so that it hides my little bumps in there, because I think they sent, look at this, she's got acne now. See how I put water down and see how it's just getting, so there must have, something must be done with the sizing. But I bought so much of this from, I probably should have returned it, but too late now. But I'm just going to go in here and do my lights, and I wet it. Anytime you see like little, like, I don't know if you can see that, there's like little dots in the paper, that usually means the sizing is off. It's something that's old, it's an old piece of paper. Maybe they had their warehouse for so long because people weren't buying panels and just now starting to buy panels. And so I'm going to go in here and get my lights, my light areas. And I'm trying to leave some spots really, really light, you know, and so I'm just going to go in here, do the light face. And you notice how I'm going over a lot of the areas that are going to be dark. Like the hair is going to be dark. It's going to be red, of course. And so we're just going to put this wetness in here. The lips will be red. And then we're just going to wet it. And I'm going to kind of finish the face right away. And why would I do that? Because I want to do wet in the wet. I want to do soft edges. So that's the light, right? I'm putting the light down. And then right away I'll put the shadowing down. But first the light, I want to make sure I have the right color for the shadows or for the flesh tone. And so I'm just going to work that until I feel it's, I'm using Opera Pink, Shell Pink, and Jaune number 2, I think, is Jaune number 2. And it's kind of like a flesh tone color. And I'm not doing the shadows, I'm doing just the flesh tone that's lit up. I'm trying to do the flesh tone that's lit up first. And I'll put highlights. If there's highlights and little dots for highlights, I'm going to put those in with gouache or with my white paint. Put the ear a little bit. And again, that's not the darks. I'm not doing the darks right now. But I am going to put the darks in right away to the face because I want them soft edge. And so I'm kind of doing this section of the painting first, even though, you know, it's the portrait basically. So I want to get it, I have to spend a little bit more time in there. I can't run around and do all the hands and stuff right away because I want to really get it while it's wet. And so I'm just going to get right away get the shadowing. Put a little purple with the little lavender. It's going to be a little brownish. And I'm just going to try to get the shading, right. And again, notice I'm going right into the hair. I'm worrying just about getting the values now. A little bit of opera in there. I like a little bit of warmth in the shading. And if you have any questions, please ask away. I'll look up every once in a while and try to answer your questions. That's why I do them. That's why I do this live, just so that you can see me painting. This is how I would paint in my studio while I'm, you know, doing my paintings. I don't do it really that much different from what I'm doing here now, demonstrating it. I'm practicing, trying to do, you know, portraiture and singers, and trying to get a bunch of them done, and maybe have a show one day of just singers and entertainers. And so here we've got the side of the nose too. I want to get that a little bit darker. And some people always say that you need to use like cool in the shadows if it's a warm light, and you know, I don't go by that. I go by, if I'm doing flesh tones, I do a darker flesh tone for the shadowing at first, and then I can do reflective color elsewhere too. That's important, reflective color. But because reflective color is there, but first and foremost I do the color of the flesh tone. And you can change it a little bit to more orange, more red if you want, or if there's a lighting, if there's a different kind of lighting, let's say there's a lighting that's very blue, then of course there'd be blue in there, but This is just regular, normal, warm lighting. And then it looks like your cheeks come forward like this. I gotta keep it wet, and you know she has freckles, and actually that's kind of a good thing. I definitely like freckles on a redhead anyway, so it's like this paper is gonna do a good job for me. So here we go. We're just gonna put it right in there. See, I'm working the shadow, trying to make it soft, and now you gotta always remember it's gonna dry 10% lighter, so go a little bit darker than you think you should. You know, a little bit darker is fine. You can always wipe out back up. You can always wipe back out when you're doing your darks. You can wipe it back out later on, and here I'm just gonna make it a little bit darker. I just got to make sure it keeps on staying wet, so I get a nice soft edge. That's what it's so important, to keep that edge soft and keep things wet. And that's also a reason you got to kind of paint it a little bit quicker when you're doing portraits, or just spray once in a while. But it is a small area, so it's not too hard to try to get this all going at once. And there's a nice little shadow across here. And if you're off a little bit on the color, don't worry about it. You know, that's fine if you're off a little bit with the color. Worry more about the values, more about the values that you're painting. That's definitely more important, to get in there and get your values right. If you're off a little bit with the color, it's dirty or whatever, that doesn't really, not going to affect it as much as it's going to affect if you don't have the right value there. Like, you can have lips that are really bright red, or they can just be dark. You know, it'll be okay. Here it gets a little bit darker. I'm using a brown, a purple with my red, and so it goes down here, gets a little bit darker. I know a lot of people don't like doing figures in watercolor, but you know, it's really kind of good to do them in watercolor, because you can have the soft edges happen on their own. You just have to learn how to use enough pigment to keep things smooth, that soft edge, while it's wet, and control the pigment with your amount of pigment that you use. The thicker the pigment, the less it's gonna lighten, and the less it's gonna be like washed out, because you're going to be going in there. Let me get my small brush to do the lips right away while it's wet, because I want to have a nice soft edge. And so I'm just going to get a nice dark upper lip. Getting a little darker upper lip. Just put that in there right away. Taking some orange and red. Kind of soft edge is really, you know, that's what the hard part is, keeping it soft. And it really isn't, because all you gotta do is keep it wet. Keep it wet, and don't worry about the details. You like the really dark darks and stuff. Just going for the middle tones and a few of the darks. This is still a little wet. That's good. So I'll make it a little bit darker. The bottom lip also is really nice and red on the bottom, because that's the one that's shining straight out. And so I'm just gonna put a lot of warmth in there. And don't worry about the reflective little highlights. That you can do with white paint. You can do that with white paint later. Just want to get it nice and bright on the top of her lip. Shadow underneath the lip. Just a darker, warm color I'm going to use right now. Underneath here. There is a little bit of, I see lavender underneath here, so let's put a little lavender underneath her chin right here. It goes down. And there's a shadow that goes this way. Put a little lavender with the orange. Just blend this together, kind of blending it together while it's warm. The nose will be a little bit darker right here. A little bit more pigment. Underneath the nose is a little bit darker. Let's take my bigger brush again. That's pretty much the big areas. I love when it comes together too, though, when you're doing it and it's just really feeling like okay. And there, I put a little lavender in this area. A little highlight right here in her neck. And look at this nice soft little edge right here, and it looks kind of lavender here. Lavender, I guess, like I always say, it's a magic color. Morning, Marianne. Morning, Maria. Marilyn. I don't know about you, but when I'm painting outdoors or even indoors in my studio, it's like Zen. I just love being in my studio, love painting. It's like I'm it's like yoga. Actually, like meditation. That's what it is, meditation. I also run sometimes in the morning, and it's kind of like that, when you're on a run, and you just kind of get your mind, and you're just thinking. And I know when you're starting out doing painting, and you're not still a beginner, you may not get as much of that Zen as I do, but because you're thinking about how you're doing the painting and stuff like that. But I don't think of how I'm doing the painting, because I'm just painting. And you gotta get to the point when you're doing that, where you're just painting and you're not really thinking about how you're doing it, and you're just doing it. That's the fun part. Just get in there and just paint. And it'll come to you like that. Sometime it'll come like that, where it gets easier and easier. I know it's hard at first, especially watercolor, but the more you do, and it's like I tell all my students, the best way to get better is just do it. Do a lot of it and make a lot of mistakes. Don't worry about that. Just make the mistakes and just keep on going. Just keep on doing it. So this is my light still. So my face is pretty much, I got the values that I want on the face, and I don't have the details in there yet, but pretty close to what I feel is okay. This could be a little bit darker right there. Now, don't use too much water. See, if I use too much water, this is damp, so I don't want to use too much water, but right here I just want to make it a little bit darker. And I'll pull a little bit of this out. So I'm going to take my brush over my towel and just take a little bit of this out and kind of help it out, rounding it up a little bit. It's so neat that the paper gives her freckles. So I'm going to go in with a little bit of... I could go into the guitar. The guitar's going to be darker, but, I don't need to, but it's a little bit darker on the side here. So it's doing your lights, but your lights are just have some darks in them that are soft edged right away. So I put them right in right away. I work it all together as my light and my dark right away, because it has to be soft edged in certain spots. And so when you're working wet and wet, you just have to watch it and just keep it wet and get your darks right away so that they're soft edged. But they still are lighter than my darkest darks and stuff. So it's still like, right now I'm doing the middle tone for the flesh and the light tones, because she is wearing like a little mesh thing here. And so I'm just going to put that in there. Again, I use a little opera, a little jaune number 4, 2 or 4. I think jaune number 2, which is like this right here. It's flesh tone. But while it's wet, get your dark parts of the flesh tone too. And I use a little bit of lavender for that. It makes it kind of brownish. And so, I'm just going to put that in there right away. The lavender kind of purples it up a little bit. Let's do the lights on the fingers. Because her hands and her body are the only light parts. And this band that it goes from her neck down here, I took that out. So I'm just going to give her the black top. She's going to have a black, kind of dark top. And the background being really dark like that, I'm going to not make it quite that black. I may want to put a little bit of lights in there and make it... I may try to put a light in there. Let's see. But right now we're just going to go in here, get our flesh tones. Go right into the guitar. Don't worry about that. It's darker. I'm going to form the fingers. I want to form the fingers a little bit while it's so wet. Get soft edges again. And again, use enough pigment so that it stops. It stops on the edges. you know, and doesn't bleed really far. Use a little alizarin here. I use a little lavender, a little bit of orange to make the shadow parts. And actually, her finger only has a little bit of light. Looks like, let's see, like on the back here, it has a little bit of dark, and right here it has dark. And the back of her hand is all in shadow. This is all in shadow, and so a little bit of color in there, maybe a little bit of purple, just to kind of bring it down in value, because it's pretty dark. And so I'm just going to go in there and get these darks in there. Again, if you have any questions of what I'm doing, or you're wondering about something, even if it's not part of the painting, you know, please ask. I'm here to answer questions and teach you. So I'm not using any gouache, but anytime you use a thicker color, like make it thicker, like this jaune and this pink, they have white in it. And so they're almost like you're working with gouache anyways. So, you know, it's up to you, you know, how thick you want to make those colors, because they can be transparent or they can be kind of opaque. Because this color may have white in them, but if you use a lot of water, they're going to be very transparent. They're going to be kind of pastel-like, but they will definitely be opaque if you put too much paint on them. Like if you use them thick. But once I use water, see, I'm putting them in water, and they'll float and they'll make themselves transparent. Just a little bit purple, and this blouse is going to be black, so I can just go right in there. It doesn't really matter. Now let's, those are my, oh, I still forgot that hand. That hand is kind of light on the side. And I kind of drew it in a little bit different from what you see in the picture, because there was not enough room, and I made it more horizontal. This is a square picture, and I brought it down a little bit. I give it more guitar, and I just made the picture bigger. I do that a lot of times. I mean, the picture was square, and so I want to make it rectangular. So I'm figuring this part of the hand is dark. Use a little bit of purple, alizarin, a little light red. Thumb is probably a little dark. All right, so there are all my lights. There's a few lights on the microphone. You know, maybe I'll put a little bit light in there on the microphone. My lights and mediums. That's the first thing I work on. Now I gotta do her hair. So let's put a little bit of light into her hair. The light parts of her hair are gonna go in here. And so this is what you're going to be painting around to get the little highlights for the red. And it's going to be a lot darker in the background, but this, again, this is the lighting part. This is the light parts of my painting. Once you get the darks, then you can go in there and grab all the nice dark areas and make them really rich dark. And right now I got to put down the pigment so that I can paint around the lights, the highlights of the hair and stuff. That's what I'm doing basically right now, is the highlights of the hair, because they're going to be red. So you got to put a nice color in there, and then the darks will look like they're vibrant. I can also go back in later, and if I feel I didn't make it light enough, or if I lost my light, I can go back in there with opaques. But I try to do it this way first, you know, try to do it first, and if it doesn't, then I can go with opaques. And I guess while this is wet, if you want the soft haired edges, and then put in some of the darks right away. I need a drink of coffee. Cheers, everybody. Thanks again for the condolences. It was really, really wonderful. It's been a very busy week. It was a very interesting week, and it's nice having people think of you. All right, so a little purple here. And so I'm going to get some of these darks in here and kind of, while it's wet, get some of the hair, dark hairs. And see how I'm getting the really dark darks? And they're soft edge. That's what I want. I want the soft edges now. And to get them, you need to just wet things up. Wet it up. And the detailed hairs that are coming down on the side here, that you can wait for. You can put them in with detail, hard edges. You can put a couple of soft edges in here because this is kind of like, she has a lot of hair here. And don't be afraid of putting a different value to the hair. You can, like, especially back here, I may put a little bit of blue or purple. And of course, this being a portrait or a figure, drawing is utmost important. Of course, it's the most important, actually. And so spend your time. I mean, I spent all last night, I drew it up a little bit. And this morning I just I shaded it a little bit while I'm drawing. So shading helps me out a lot. You know, and I know, I'm not sure if people do that. They just put the line work in. I shade. I have no problem with shading it too, so that I know kind of what's going to be dark and light, and helps me out when I'm going to paint it then. I gotta get a little bit brighter red in here, because the background's gonna be pretty dark. I want to really emphasize the darks in this piece. And that, you know, a lot of times I don't use solid black, but sometimes I've seen a lot of people lately, a lot of these famous artists kind of use a lot of grays and a lot of dark black, and basically like black. Alvaro, I forget how you pronounce his name. So we're just going to go in here, get some of this dark in there. Knowing what's important in the portrait is like the outer edge, the hard edges show dimension, right? They show shape too. So hard edges make them really nice and clean, so that it looks really good, your side of your face. All this stuff out here doesn't matter. You can have it crazy, but that edge of the face has to look good. And so let's go around now, and so there's my lights. Again, that's my light middle tones. It's not my darkest dark. I'm going to do that in a second. I'm going in there with my let's just put a little bit dark right, or a little bit light right here around her. Then I'm going with a really light, or really darks. And she's going to have a black top on, so let me put those little flowers there. So how about these flowers being warm? They're going to be warm and red, so I get some of that red in there. Let's get some reflections on the stands and stuff, and middle tones before I get my black, before I get my darks. The darks are going to be very important, but the middle tones have to be there so that you paint around them or through them or under them. Here's the strap for the guitar. Lights are there. So the guitar is kind of a middle tone too, so I'm going to do that now. Get a little bit of the guitar going, because it looks like it's a really nice warm guitar here. A really nice. I'm going to go right through this part. Actually, I can go through all of it. So I'm just going to do a big area, and this will actually go right into the guitar. So make it nice and dark. I'm just going to make this part dark too. Brown, a mid-zone brown, which is kind of a purple brown. Go around her fingers. Then the inside of the guitar is around in here, so I'm just put that in right away. See, I'm not going to separate things. I'm going to separate areas of light and dark. I don't separate like the blouse from the guitar from the hand unless I need to have light to dark. I try to make things come together as one. Like even right here, just put it all together, one big wash. And then work the wash until you get that big, nice, beautiful wash looking really nice. And then you can later on put the details in. like the strings and stuff, I can either scratch them in, or I can actually kind of put them in now too if I felt like if I want to scrape them while they're wet. And that's one thing I feel when you're impressionistic painter, and compared to like a hyperrealist. The hyperrealist would definitely do each piece, you know, but I feel like I'm just doing an interpretation, you know, impressionism, where there you don't make it look so like perfect, like with every little line. If there's something a little bit off, I find that's fine. This will be a nice dark, and does that go dark to the hand? So this is kind of like out of focus down here, so I'm just going to make it nice and dark. And I haven't kind of established my darkest dark yet. So once I can start going here, I'm going to work my way around this way and just get a really dark in there. And it looks like her blouse is going to be dark too, so let's go in there right now. Her blouse, her top is going to be very dark, so, and then she's got this mesh on. So let's just make this soft edge right now, and later on I'll go in there. This whole background is really dark, so I can go right into that area. Don't even worry about that either. Don't have to worry about an area that's going to be dark. Alright, so there's my guitar. Get the side of the guitar. That's going to be dark. That's going to be dark. Alright, here we go. Now our darks, our large dark areas. Still part of step 2, where you're getting your darkest darks. And I can scrape some of these hairs in there later, or if I had like one of those brushes that had a little scraper, or you can use all kinds of different hard edge things. You can scrape in the hair. See if I got something here. I don't think I have anything. Old credit cards, you know, something. Do I have anything? I didn't think about getting something. Here, I'll take a mechanical pencil that doesn't have the lead out. I can just go like this. So just scraping away the paint, basically. And as you can tell, this is going to be really dark. I want this part to be really super dark. So I'm taking black, Prussian blue, the purple, and look at it. It's really, really dark. And this will be part of the hair too. Thanks, Mary Beth. Thanks for telling everybody to hit the like button. See how nice and dark that is? How it's just gonna play into the. Now I don't want to go all the way around and just have a hard edge there all the way around. So it's good to then also, before you get going, is just in here, kind of bring it into here and leave there a little bit of that really dark. So not everything. It's like just a little bit of the hair is showing. And again, I can put that in with scratching, or I can go back in later with opaque and put that in there too. Like, I'm just going to try to. Really dark means a lot of pigment too, because if it lightens up too much, then it's going to lighten up if you don't have enough pigment. And so really push the pigment into water. It's still wet in the wet, so I can get soft edges right on the edge here. But inside the hair here, I want it to be nice and dark. Nice and dark. Look at how much pigment I'm picking up. And I just go through all of these. Look at it. Every single color there. I just put it in there, and it's not really wet up here yet. I'm wetting with paint and a lot of paint and a lot of water in my brush. There's a lot of paint and water in my brush right now, and so I'm just going to go in there and use both brushes. I might put both my hand and get the smaller ones to get a little bit more red here. I'm just going to try to get some of the hairs that are just sticking out. She's like not combed, it's just like hair flying, and I love that look, you know, where it's just everywhere. And don't worry about the detail of the small hairs. That you can get later. And we can go back in and get that with opaques or scratching like I've been talking about. Now I'm going to go really careful with the side of her head, and then maybe just put her eyes in here too. A little dark right there. Around her microphone. This is almost like meditating. It's just so much fun. I hope you guys get the same feeling sometimes when you're painting. I hope you get there someday. If you don't, it's just to sit there and paint, and it's just so relaxing for me. And lately, being outdoors, it's even more fun because it's being outdoors is just the atmosphere and just the setting usually. Look how dark this is coming now. See how you just get in there with your nice darks, and all those little lights that I did before, they look even lighter now because of how dark I'm getting with the background. I know this is a hard edge right there, but I can get rid of that in a second. Hold on. I'm using my small brush. I'm close to where I really need it to be detailed. But then when I go back to the big areas, I'll be taking out my big brush again. Okay, so my bigger round. I'm going to wet this area and just put it a lot of... That's where you wet it, and then just throw in a bunch of paint. And if I wanted to do like, let's say I want to do like a light coming through there, but I'm gonna keep it dark like the photo because I kind of like that look. Sometimes if you have too much lighting and it's just like too crazy, it doesn't look as good. I think simplifying background sometimes is a good thing to do. Just simplify it and make it a nice watercolor wash. Like what kind of wash can you do to make it look good? You're going to throw salt in there, you're going to spatter it, do you want, or just keep it smooth with a lot of pigment, maybe a lot of pigment where it's floating, you see the pigment floating on top. Kids are very quiet today. I was going to go plein air paint this morning, but we're going to have a big family thing this afternoon, and so I didn't want to go out and have to come back. And next week, next Saturday I start plein air painting competition in Grand Marais, Minnesota, and so that would be a lot of fun. That's always a really great time up there. And if you are looking to take one of my workshops, I've got 4 coming up. 4 of them are coming up. One is in Grand Marais, it's a mini workshop, and then I'm in Hibbing, Minnesota for 2 days. If you're up in that area, look at my website if you want to see any of these. Definitely my Dillman's workshop still needs some people, so if you want to come up to Dillman's and do my watercolor workshop up there, they have plenty of room still. So sign up ASAP because it's going to be in 3 weeks. My Dillman's workshop, and that's always a fun one. I bring everything. Remember, I bring all the supplies. And so now, look at it, I didn't go all the way down, way up with this, so let's do this all the way up. I can maybe leave a little bit of the edge, or not. Just going around the fingers. So next year, just to let you warn you now that I won't be doing as many workshops I'm really going to try to focus on a lot of these plein air events. So the Dillmans, I'm only going to next year only going to be doing one time, and that'll probably be in the spring. And then but I will be in Florida in January also. I'm going to try to get back to Florida, which I always am. Let's go right down to these darks down here below. See, I'm always put it together. I try to put these things together as one big area that just let things flow together. As long as you have your values picked out from the beginning, you know which way to go. You know which one to do dark first, dark last, or dark details last. It's all the same every time I do it. Every time I do a painting, it's the same. Lights to dark, back to front, the three-step, Becker Art three-step. Now this hand, I was only a little bit light there, so watch this. I'm just going to go in here and just kind of blend it together, lose it a little bit with a little bit of flesh tone. Just lose it into the background. Not everything has to be in focus, and that means just making it look nice and soft edged. And how do you make something soft edged? You wet it, right? Very simple. You wet it, let it be soft edged, and then this will be the details of the netting that she has on her. She has like netting. That's just details. And just right away go in here with the hand again, soften the hand by putting water on there. And then this is a little bit darker on her knuckles here. Life drawing and all those years of life drawing and stuff really helped out in learning how to draw. I know a lot of people are using machines and stuff, but sooner or later it's good to learn a little bit about drawing from your imagination, from your head, by watching and looking at things while you're drawing them. Because even with the machines, it's okay to use the machines, but try to figure out what it is that you're drawing and proportions and stuff like that. And that still is important to learn. The machines help out with that, and they're not a problem to use. I have no problem with anybody using them. I just feel you need to just also learn a little bit about the drawing. Like, what are you tracing? What is it that tracing? You know, are you doing the right proportions? Are you looking at it with proportions? All right, now we'll go with a little smaller brush for her top. See, I'm just making things darker now. I'm just larger darks. That was a big, large dark, right? Now this is a little bit smaller dark because this is her top. And her top has a little bit of flower on it. And I may just do like a really fake, big, huge dark here. And when I say dark, I'm going to use all the darks I've been using already. I don't change those darks. Like, I'm just going to use all the darks I've used back there. I'm going to use the same colors. That way it all relates really well. You don't have to worry about the actual color. Just worry about something that you already used. You already used it. It's going to blend in nicely. This goes really dark here. If it's off a little bit by, you feel like it's too light or too red or too warm, that's fine. It'll be fine. I'm going to blend this together in there too, because her whole shoulder is really in shadow, right? So I'm just going to put her whole shadow into the, and put some flesh tone in there, a little bit opera even. Just put a little flesh tone, but this all has to be dark, right? A warm dark because it's flesh, and some of this really dark color to just kind of bring it together. See, if you paint pieces, then things they don't go together. Like her whole neck I still have to do again because it's a little bit too light, but I'm just going to try to get this really darks, and then I'll go back in the look, and I'll keep her face light, and I can keep it not too dark. I don't have to go really dark because it is part of my light, so it doesn't matter if it's really light or really dark light. My light's dark, but that as long as it's different from the hair, it's fine. But I think this will have to be a little bit darker to create the shade, the light coming just on her face. And even her shoulder here is pretty much in the dark. Her shoulder right here is in the dark. Let's first get the, where did I put my round one? So first I want to go in there and get my other top, the other top on the other side here. And so that goes like a little dark right here. Again, kind of a little sparkle flower here. I don't know if you noticed, when I go into my darks, I hit them all. These are my dark area on my palette. And so I can dip into any one of these, and I put them together sometimes like that, and that way I know I'm getting a really dark dark. And so then there's these little flowers in there, and they're pretty, a lot darker, these flowers, but I can do that later too to make them a little bit darker. But right now I'm just getting the outer edge of them. And now I gotta get her shoulder a little bit darker. And see how this is just bleeding up now. I got a little bit too light because I didn't use that dark enough dark here for her hands. So wow, this is, it looks like it's almost about dry. Just go back in here, hit that a little bit. Nice dark. All right, now let's get her shoulder. Just darken it a little bit. It's still a light, but it's just a little bit darker, and it's underneath this strap, so it's a little bit darker. And then I can put the details afterwards. I don't need contrast there because do I really want people to look at the shoulder? You know, it's really not that important, her shoulder. I'm just going to darken it. All right, so let's do her. This is way too light. Like her ear, you can barely see the ear, and so I'm just going to take a nice dark color and just kind of re-enter a nice dark through here. There's a little bit of the hair right here that's going to be light, and so just want to go in, and I did like a little bit of that lavender I used in there, but let's make it nice and dark. Oops, it kind of went over her neck here. And she has a nice, look at the warmth underneath her chin. It's like really nice and warm here. Her chin is like almost orange right underneath there. And I'll put a little bit into their face. Going to soften the edge by just putting water there. I'm not going to darken her cheek though. I don't want it as dark as in the photo. I'm just going to leave that. I kind of like where it's at right now. So I'm just going to leave that. Just going to wet it again and then just leave it a little bit lighter there. And then go down here and just darken this area. There's a lot of neck right there. She's seeing a lot of neck, and so then right to her clavicle here. And right there, right to where you got the little dot right there. See the where it's real dark right there. Let's put a little bit darker right by her neck there, where the collarbones start. Put a little bit of that there. You have this nice dark shadow on that side too. So put a little bit of that there. And like her jewelry, I put a heart. I put a heart there. And this has got a shadow like this. It goes in there, kind of comes this way. Make the shadow a little bit darker. I notice her hand down here also. The darks are not dark enough for the shadowing parts, and so let's just darken this hand a little bit. And you always see I'm getting more and more detailed, but I don't do like really super fine detail until I get to that part. These are still big areas, and I'm still trying to establish big areas, and then I'll get to the small stuff. Because you can't do the small stuff until you get this big stuff all worked out. And sometimes you don't even have to do anything then when you get those big things done. Like you'll have enough, it'll show enough to where you don't need to put all the little things in there. Because again, it's an impression that you're making, and so sometimes it's good enough to do a few things and that's it. This is very dark, this microphone. You can see it's barely, it just shows a few little touches of light that you see that are flickering in there. So, all right, let's go something really dark inside the guitar. I'm getting smaller and smaller and smaller with details. I'm getting smaller and the whole guitar is a lot darker too. This seems a little bit too light here, because again, it goes into the distance so that you don't really look down here for contrast and pushing things together to make it all go together as one painting. It's not separate things. It's all one thing. It's all one pattern. And the simpler the pattern, the bigger the pattern, the better your paint is going to turn out. You can still have a bunch of stuff happening in there, but the pattern of light and dark, kind of keep it as simple as possible. It always works out best. I have found, no matter what kind of painting I'm doing, outside, inside. Thanks, Maria. I'm glad it's meditative too. Just don't fall asleep, all right? All right, so here, look at it. I'm taking out my rigger brush now, and I'm going to start getting the details, super fine details. I'm probably not going to get them all by the time we're done here. How many more minutes we got? We got 8 minutes. But we're going to get close. So we have all these little, we have this little mesh going through here on our thing, and so I'm just going to take my rigger brush and wet it and just get all these little lines in the mesh. And you could do this to exactly like the photo too if you drew it in well enough, but I'm just going to again do it more impressionistic, and so because it's actually, it's kind of an interesting mesh. It looks like there's even like objects in the mesh. Can't quite tell exactly what they are, but if you can, just put them in whatever way you want. It goes all the way down here, the mesh. You can give her fingernail polish too if you like. Now in the face, I'm just going to give her the eyelashes. Nice and dark. This gets kind of dark over here. And then I will put really dark hair lines in there too. Make the hair dark lines and also light lines, so it'll be a little bit of both. Put an earring on her. So I'm going with the dark lines first, and then I'll go in with the soft light ones too. Nostril. The strings on the guitar. I put them in first dark, and I put a light on top of that. It's detail. You can go as detailed as you want. It's up to you how detailed you want to get. That hand is way, way, way too light. So let's put a little dark in there. Soften the edge. How do you soften the edge? Wet it. It doesn't have to be that important down there. Matter of fact, I don't want it that important down there. Let's get a little bit darker. This can be a little bit darker here, to not show we don't really need to see what's down there. best part will be this hair right here in front of her face that's coming down. And I can't see my drawing. What did I do there? Is there one that, oh, see, there's one right here. And especially the part that you're gonna love is when you do that with the light, putting the light in there. The light hairs, that's gonna be the best part. And detail now is, it's like, you know, putting the lettering on the cake. You know, it's time for everything, and at the end, then you put as much as you can in there. I mean, everything, it will make it look great. All the little details will really make it look finished. So I'm putting all the dark finishes first, and then I'll put the light on top of that. Putting all kinds of hairs, comes down. And I mean, you can spend like hours on making sure you get every single hair, and that's okay. If you felt like you really need to make that part look really detailed, no problem with that. I probably should give her more eyebrows. Soften that a little bit. Alright, so now the white and the light red. I'm going to take white, put a little orange in that. Orange and white, and so I'm making very light color for hair. I don't want to make it white, the hair. You know, a couple of spots you can have white up here. And then it's just messy hair. It's just like a little bit messy hair right here. A little red. Especially back here, it's really just a bunch of really fine lines. But I'm not going to put all those in because I really didn't put everything in for everything else anyways, so just enough to make it look like it's rim lit a little bit. Looks like she has some down here. Little highlights. Then we need this is where I need my ruler. Oh, where'd it go? Use my ruler here to just put in some of these lines for the guitar. See how easy that works with when you use a ruler? But that part is dented, the ruler, so. And this is not like cheating or anything, just use, if you really want straight lines, just use a ruler. Just guide your brush against it. Here the edge is really nice and clean, so let me clean up this edge right here. Highlights on the microphone. And let's get some really bright red, orange. Again, you do this the way you want. You can also use masking fluid if you felt like you don't want to make it thick like this. You don't want to use opaques. This is pretty much using opaques. And of course these colors are going to reflect into the microphone. The colors, the straps, the hairs. And you don't want to make too many so where, especially if you don't not making a really super fine detailed painting. Just a few is enough to make you understand where the light's coming from, that it's hairs. Soften some of these edges. Otherwise it starts looking like little worms all over the place. Kind of soften them up a little bit here and there. These flowers, tone them down a little bit. They're not in the light, they're in the dark, just like the blouse is, so a little bit darker. You can put a tint over it. You can just take a tint of color, put it over there a little bit darker. It's going to show through because it's transparent, so you'll still see it through there. And I think that is pretty much it. I may go in here while I'm done and actually I didn't put it dark enough here. Sorry, a few minutes over, but let's just a little darks here. With the highlight on. Let's put a highlight on our earring. And this part I know is too complicated. So what do you do when something's too complicated? You take your brush and you just make it all come together, wet into wet, and make it nice and even. Let it float, and then just make it a dark. See, if something gets too complicated, blur it. Blur it, blur it, blur it, and then just go back in later on, and then you can get a little bit of the details, just fewer details. You don't need to identify everything. See, just simplifies it. And same thing with her hand. There's too much going on here. I'm gonna take my big brush and then just simplify it. And I do that after, sometimes I'll do the whole painting, look at it, and then I'll come back the next day and realize there's too much going on in certain areas. I'll just take, I did that with my last plein air thing. I noticed I did too much detail, and so I'm just gonna blur parts out that I don't feel need to be, that important, and so blur them out or bring things together. And you can do that, I don't care, before or after you look at it for a while, come back later the next day, like this whole thing right here. I just want to blur that more out so that you don't have to see all this, what's going on there. It's more important that it just is a big area of dark. Same thing, look at the guitar, it's like too much happening in there. So wet it, just re-wet it, and then it'll all float together nice and evenly and give it a nice big area of darkness. And same thing with here. Like I know this guitar has like a really beautiful shine to it. But so I'm gonna just re-wet it real quickly. I know I'm over by 4 minutes, but we're just gonna do this to show you. So you can always go back over an area if you wet it, and then just blend it, let it blend itself together, because the water will loosen up the paint, and then if you want, you can put like a little bit more paint in there to make it more even. But it'll blend together itself because of the water just being there, right? It's just the water blends everything together, and I felt like this and this now it'd be a little bit more the same. And it's just transparent watercolor, so it's going to be fine. You're going to see through it because it's just a large area that you just are wetting again, and we're putting transparent paint on top of it, so it'll come together. But see how much more together that stuff looks all in one area. All right, that is it, guys. Thanks again for coming by this Sunday morning. And if you want to try it, there's the picture. Let me put it up for you if you ever want to try it. Let me just really quickly put it up big, because I know I don't give you the image for this. First I gotta unlock it, sorry. Let's see, first I gotta unlock this thing. There we go. Oh, come on. Here we go. So there's the image. If you want to try it, lock on right now and take a screenshot, and then you can do that. If you want to try it, this is a royalty-free image, I think from pixabay.com, so it's royalty-free. And so there you have it. Have a great day, guys, and I will probably not have a Thursday night paint along this week because I'm heading up there to Minnesota to do the plein air event. So I think the next painting I'll be doing is maybe on Sunday, outdoors plein air painting, because it starts. So we'll see. So keep on following me on my website, and you'll see what's going on. Any more last questions? Making darker shadows left eye and cheek. Yeah, you're right. I will be doing that, but I'll be doing it after it's done here. The left eye needs a little bit more shadow, and so does the cheek. But I will do that after we're done here. And I'll also put more lines for the guitar. So see you later, guys. Thanks again for all the condolences, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.